On August 5th, 2014, the San Antonio Spurs did something that had never been done before in the NBA. They hired Becky Hammon as a full-time assistant coach, making her the first female to ever have a full-time coaching position, laying that foundation for women coaches to grow even more across sports. Here's the story behind how all this happened and its effect today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide to a rapid deep dive into sports history every day. And today's trivia question to listen out for is, what WNBA team drafted Becky Hammon? Now, for a little background into coaching in general, I am a former college football coach, and men's sports are almost entirely dominated by men's coaches. And across all NCAA sports, in football, soccer, baseball, and basketball, there are no women head coaches. But by comparison, men coach 66% of women's soccer, 43% of basketball, and 33% of softball, a sport that men don't even play collegiately. Now, luckily, these percentages are dwindling down as women are feeling more empowered to be coaches. Women are the ones participating in the sports, and usually the participants in the sports are the ones that eventually become coaches. That's kind of how it goes. You become a player, then at some point, due to injury or retirement, you move into a coaching role because you love the sport. But back in the day, women were thought to play the sport in school and then move on to being a wife or homemaker. And that has definitely changed in our culture, and that's a good thing because women can do a lot of things. And they should be given these opportunities because in my experiences with women coaches in college, they are fantastic. There's no difference between a man or a woman coaching a sport. And frankly, if it was the decision up to me, if I was an athletic director or a GM or someone making the decision to hire a women's sport, I'm going to hire a women's coach. That's how it should go now. Men should not be filling these positions unless it's a lack of candidates. That's the only reason, which happens sometimes in smaller communities. But other than that, women should be given these opportunities over men because men have other sports they can coach. You can coach men's basketball, you can coach men's soccer, you can coach baseball instead of softball. So these are sports that they need to break down these barriers. And Becky Hammon is one of those people. Now, before Becky Hammon took her job in the NBA, there was a couple of people that helped lead the way for her. First, in 2003, Teresa Phillips became the first female to coach an NCAA basketball game when the head coach had been fired by her as she was the AD and the interim coach had been suspended. She stepped in as she had experience coaching the women's team at Tennessee State and had been a player at Vanderbilt. And she stepped in, sadly, in a losing effort and was just for one game. But Nancy Lieberman is probably the one that has helped lead Becky and break down even more barriers for her. As she played at Old Dominion back in the 80s and then played for some women's leagues here and made her WNBA debut for the Phoenix Mercury in 1997 and later went on to coach. And that's where she had a lot of success. And in November 2009, she became the head coach of the Texas Legends, which was an NBA developmental league, now known as the G League today, and she was the first woman to be the head coach of a professional basketball team. And a year after Becky got hired by the Spurs, she was actually hired by the Sacramento Kings as an assistant coach as well. But today, we want to dive in a little bit to Becky Hammon's background and how did she land this job and break down these barriers. Well, she grew up loving basketball in South Dakota and was named Miss Basketball her junior year, and her senior year, she was voted South Dakota Player of the Year, averaging 26 points. And when she graduated in 1995, she wasn't getting any major offers to go to any schools, as many considered her too small and too slow. She was only 5'6", which is not short for women on average, but the average WNBA guard is about 6 feet. But she made up for it with her knowledge of the game and her skills. And luckily, she was able to catch the attention of Colorado State, who offered her a scholarship where she would go on to become a 3-time All-American and would lead Colorado State to a Sweet 16 appearance in the 1999 March Madness tournament. And at the time of her graduation, she was the West Athletic Conference all-time leading scorer when she passed Keith Van Horn. But despite all of this, and the WNBA being around for a few years, by the time she graduated in 1999, she did not get drafted. Still, too small and too slow. But this gave her the opportunity to be an undrafted free agent and kind of pick where she went and tried out for. And she got signed by the New York Liberty, where she wasn't expected to start right away. She was behind WNBA star Teresa Witherspoon and slowly worked her way into the starting lineup in 2003. And by the next year, she would be a team captain. And on April 4th, 2007, a move that would change her career and her life forever, she was traded to the San Antonio Silver Stars, where Hammon put up career numbers, averaging over 18 points and 5 assists, leading the league in assists, and getting the nickname Big Shot Becky. And in 2009, she would be named to the first team All-WNBA. But on July 13, 2013, Becky tore her ACL in a game versus the LA Sparks. And this is also another moment that caused the change in her life. She kind of thought about going to coaching after her career, and she was coming close to that end, especially after this injury, as it would take a year long to heal. And at this time, she was lucky to be in the building where the San Antonio Spurs practice, had coaching meetings and games, and she was able to be a fly on the wall for all of that because she was on the WNBA team connected to the Spurs. And because of that, after she retired due to tearing her ACL, the following year, on August 5th, 2024, she was hired as a full-time assistant coach by the Spurs. And she had made a big impression on the staff, including head coach Greg Popovich, during her time in San Antonio with the Silver Stars. Not only playing, but how she interpreted the game, especially when she was injured that final year. So it just goes to show you how life circumstances can put you where you need to be, and that allowed her the opportunity to coach with the Spurs. And she became the first female coach to ever coach an NBA Summer League game, which are games played during the summer for draft picks, undrafted players, to try to make the team make a name for themselves, to make the league one day, or at least the G League that we have now. While coaching with the Spurs, she even made it onto the 2016 NBA All-Star coaching staff, gaining respect from her team and the whole league as well. And in 2017, in the offseason, she was actually interviewed for the general manager position for the Milwaukee Bucks, and actually brought in for an interview. Was a big deal. Then, in December of 2020, Greg Popovich actually got ejected from a game where the Spurs were facing off against the LA Lakers. And if you don't know, when a head coach is ejected from a game, the assistant coaches take over. And there's usually one assistant coach that's designated as the assistant head coach, and that was Becky Hammon. So this made it the very first time a female was the acting head coach in a basketball game. It was a pivotal moment, even though the Spurs ended up losing the game. It's probably the reason why Greg Popovich was actually ejected due to anger during the game. Then in 2021, Becky Hammon became one of the finalists for a head coaching position in the NBA when she was interviewed by the Portland Trailblazers. And though she would not get this, it wasn't the only time her name was brought up in coaching hiring processes. And it was a great stepping stone to show how quality she was as a coach, whether she was female or not. At the end of in December 2001, Becky actually interviewed for the WNBA's Aces head coaching position. Now, this could be looked at as a step down or not in the right direction, but it was a chance for her to be a head coach because she had been on so many different interviews to be a head coach in the NBA and been turned down. She wanted the chance to show she could run a team. She thought maybe that would help. And so she took this WNBA position and took it by storm, winning the WNBA title her first year as a head coach for the Las Vegas Aces. And then she won it again, back-to-back WNBA championships. Then in 2023, after winning 2 WNBA championships, she was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame for her contributions as both a player and a coach. And she is still continuing her coaching journey to this day, as she still coaches the Las Vegas Aces and are consistently a title contender every year. Who knows where her journey will take her as a coach, but she's proving to have success, whether coaching men or women's. She is a basketball coach. through and through. Maybe in the future she'll deserve even another episode as she continues to have success in the basketball world. And if you like today's episode, please go tell a friend so they can become a sports historian just like you. Come back tomorrow for more daily sports history. And did you catch the answer to today's trivia question? What WNBA team drafted Becky Hammon? And this was a trick question, as she was undrafted and she signed with the New York Liberty as an undrafted free agent.